Well, the exciting thing about the work that I'm doing is that I think for the first time that family members and peers who are working on AOT programs or any sort of program where basically there's some type of forced treatment, that are really working together and are coming to the table probably more open than they ever have been to listening to each other's stories, from hearing each perspective. And even though folks may disagree, they agree to disagree, and it's all in the spirit of collaboration. And really, they have really done a great job of really identifying some shared values. I think one of the shared values that they've articulated is that recovery is possible. That people can and do recover. One of the other shared values is that when family members and peers are working together, that it's really important that they respect each other's point of view, and that they don't come out of an experience with a winner or loser. Another value that's emerged is recovery. Recovery is not a linear process. It's each person's journey. But it's not a process necessarily where family or how a person defines their family necessarily has to be excluded from that process. That often there are program participants whose family members are very actively involved, and it works. And it's interesting, even though families may not be intact and family units have gone through collective trauma or historical trauma, whatever, that often individuals do want their family members to become involved, and I think that's a really good thing. The other value is, I think, one of transparency. People are real. They talk about their feelings, their attitudes, their belief systems, and I think that gives folks really not a safe space, which was another value, really creating safety, a safe space for a fully free flow exchange of ideas. And those kinds of activities really lead to the development of I would say, a shared sense of values that ultimately is like a mosaic, because it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, some of this and some of that. So I'm really proud of the group in the sense that they're all really deeply committed to the work that they do, whether they're a family member working with the project or a peer specialist working in a project. And really, really committed to ultimately what we all want, for people to rely on natural supports, a life in the community, and really at some point to be able to make choices, informed choices about their treatment and what works and what doesn't. All of us realize that what we would say the hospital to jail phenomenon, that people often end up where they don't get treatment or, in a broader sense, some type of support to maintain a life in the community. That trajectory goes from a diagnosis to being out there to being in jail, particularly when you're talking about poor people, you're talking about African Americans or people from other communities. And in the work that I do, cultural competency is another inherent, a really core value that I tried to really transmit to the group, that everybody's not the same, everybody doesn't view mental illness the same way. Even the language that people use to describe what they're feeling and what their experiences are, and also their attitudes about the medical profession and treatment in general. Understand that culture is a big part of recovery, whether it's your spiritual, your belief system, whether you may gravitate towards more alternative treatments or whatever, that those are important things that family members and peers who are doing this work really have to be really open to hearing, regardless of what our own personal belief systems may be. And then finally, hope. They all have hope. And if they have hope, they can transmit hope in a real fundamental gut way to parents and and family members. Because I know as a parent, I needed hope.